Two people, same salary, same starting point. One retires at 47, the other is still checking their account on Sunday nights at 62, wondering if they have enough. The only difference between them isn't income. It isn't luck. It isn't even how much they saved. It's a single structural decision made 20 years earlier, and by the end of this, you'll know exactly what it was. Picture this. It's a Tuesday. You're sitting at your desk, it's 2 in the afternoon, and you get a text from your mechanic. $1,300. The transmission. And your first thought isn't, okay, I'll handle it. Your first thought is, which bill do I push back this month? That moment, that exact calculation, the one where you're not thinking about your future, you're just trying to survive the week. That is what most people's financial life actually looks like. Not stock charts, not spreadsheets, just the constant mental math of, what can I move around so nothing breaks? Researchers at Princeton found that financial stress reduces your cognitive function by the equivalent of 13 IQ points, the same as losing a full night's sleep every single day. Not because people are bad at money, because the system most people are running, trade time for money, spend most of it, save what's left, is structurally designed to keep you dependent. You're always one unexpected expense away from the edge. And here's what makes it worse. Most people know something is wrong. They're saving. They're being responsible. But nothing is generating anything on its own. The money just sits there, waiting for retirement, while life keeps sending invoices. What I'm going to show you in this video is the exact structural reason why dividend investors, people who deliberately build cash-flowing assets, consistently reach financial independence a decade or two before their peers. Not because they earn more, not because they found some secret, but because they understood one principle that flips the entire game. Stay with me, because the math on this is going to genuinely surprise you. If you want the specific funds that pay monthly income, not quarterly, monthly, that's exactly what I break down here every few days. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Here's a question I want you to hold on to. Two people save $100,000. Same amount, same timeline. Why does one of them end up with control over their time, and the other is still dependent on a paycheck 15 years later? Hold that. We're going to answer it, and the answer is not what most people expect. Meet Sarah and Marcus. Same age, 32. Same industry, similar salaries, around $75,000 a year each. They both decide to get serious about money after a particularly rough month. Sarah's was the car repair. Marcus's was a medical bill that wiped out his emergency fund entirely and left him with nothing. Both of them commit to saving $500 a month. Same discipline, same sacrifice. But here's where they split. Marcus does what everyone around him is doing. He puts it into a savings account first, then eventually into a broad index fund, with the plan to sell shares in retirement. He's being responsible. He's doing the right thing by every conventional standard. Sarah does something slightly different. She builds her portfolio specifically around assets that pay her income. Dividend-paying stocks and funds, positions that generate cash on a regular schedule, independent of whether she sells anything. She doesn't touch the dividends. She just lets them reinvest, letting her shares generate more shares, which generate more dividends, which buy more shares. Same $500 a month. Same starting line. Watch what happens. Most people understand compounding in theory, but almost nobody understands why dividend compounding creates a fundamentally different outcome than standard compounding. And the difference becomes visible around year 8. I'll show you exactly why. Here's the core mechanic. When you buy a dividend-paying asset, you own a claim on future cash flows, not just a claim on a price. The price can go anywhere. The dividend, if the company is strong, keeps coming. And when you reinvest that dividend, you're not just adding to your position, you're increasing the number of shares that will generate the next round of dividends. Every cycle feeds the next one. In a standard index fund without dividend reinvestment as a focus, your growth depends entirely on price appreciation, which means it depends on the market being higher when you sell than when you bought. That's a bet on future buyer demand. Dividend investing, specifically reinvesting dividends, doesn't require anyone to value your shares higher than you bought them. the income comes regardless. Sarah's portfolio, at a conservative average yield of 4% with reinvestment, is doing something Marcus's isn't. It's generating a second force of growth that runs parallel to price appreciation. After 8 years, her reinvested dividends aren't just a bonus. They're a compounding engine of their own, buying shares that buy more shares that buy more shares. Here's the number that changes everything. By year 15, the difference between someone who reinvested dividends consistently and someone who didn't isn't 20%. It's closer to 40 to 60% in total portfolio value, depending on yield and growth. That's not a rounding error. That's years of your life. But compounding isn't the deepest reason dividend investors get free earlier. Here's the deeper mechanic, and this is the part most financial content completely misses. There are two ways to reach financial independence. The first way is to accumulate enough that you can sell assets and live off the proceeds. The 4% rule: if you have 25 times your annual expenses saved, you can withdraw 4% a year and statistically not run out of money. That's the conventional path. Save for 30 or 40 years, hit the number, retire. The second way, and this is the dividend investor's path, is to build until your income from assets covers your expenses. You don't need to sell anything. The portfolio just pays you. Now here's why that second path is faster. Because you don't have to hit the full number. You just have to hit the income. And income arrives incrementally. Every time Sarah adds to her portfolio, her monthly dividend income goes up. It's not a binary finish line, it's a rising floor. And that rising floor starts changing her relationship with her paycheck long before she's done. When her dividend income covers her car payment, she's already partially free. When it covers groceries, she's more free. When it covers her rent, she's free in the way that actually matters. She could take a lower-paying job she loves, or work fewer hours, or say no to a bad manager, and it wouldn't break her. The psychological research on this is striking. A study published in Nature Human Behavior found that passive income feels genuinely different in the brain than earned income, even at the exact same dollar amount. Because passive income is decoupled from your time. It doesn't cost you a Tuesday, and that feeling of decoupling, it arrives long before the number is fully crossed. Here's where I want you to pause for a second and honestly ask yourself, which position are you closer to right now? Are you still entirely dependent on the paycheck, where if it stopped tomorrow, everything stops? Or have you started building any income layer at all, even a small one, that runs separately from your time? Hold that answer, because what I'm about to show you changes depending on where you're starting from. Let's run the actual numbers, and I'll keep this human, not a spreadsheet lecture. Sarah starts at 32, $500 a month going into dividend-focused positions averaging a 4% yield with reinvestment and about 6% average annual price appreciation, conservative numbers historically supported. By year 5, her portfolio is around $40,000. Her annual dividend income is roughly $1,600. That doesn't sound like freedom yet, but she's not going for freedom yet, she's going for velocity. By year 10, her portfolio has grown to approximately $90,000. Annual dividend income around $3,600. She's covering one full monthly expense. And that number keeps climbing without her doing anything extra. By year 14, at 46 years old, Sarah's portfolio crosses $160,000. And her dividend income is touching $7,200 a year. $600 a month, paid to her by her assets, automatically. She's covered her car, her phone, her utilities, and most of her food without selling a single share. She doesn't retire at 46, but she could work part-time. She could say no to overtime. She has breathing room that Marcus, who saved the same amount but in a non-dividend structure, won't experience for another decade. And here's the thing about that breathing room. It's not just financial. That 13-point cognitive tax study I mentioned? When you remove the paycheck dependency pressure, you think more clearly. You make better decisions. You stop optimizing for survival and start optimizing for life. The income doesn't just pay bills. It gives you your brain back. Let me bring Marcus back for a second. At 46, Marcus has a similar account balance to Sarah. On paper, they look nearly identical. But Marcus is checking his portfolio hoping the price goes up. He's rooting for a number on a screen. His freedom depends on timing, on selling at the right moment, on the market cooperating. He has no income. He has appreciation and hope. Sarah is watching her quarterly deposit hit her account and thinking about what she's going to do with her Wednesday mornings. Same discipline, same money. Two completely different experiences of life at 46. That image, that contrast, is why dividend investing isn't just a strategy. It's a different relationship with time itself. Here's the moment most people don't think about until it arrives. At some point, and for dividend investors, this comes early, you stop reinvesting and start redirecting. Sarah doesn't have to do anything structural to retire. She doesn't have to liquidate. She doesn't have to time the market. She just stops sending the dividends back in and lets them hit her checking account instead. The switch is a setting. The income was already there. For Marcus, retirement requires selling shares and hoping the math works for 30 years without running out. Every withdrawal slightly reduces his engine. For Sarah, the engine keeps running. She's not drawing down. She's drawing income. Her shares are still there, still growing, still generating dividends next quarter. The source doesn't shrink. This is the structural advantage that almost nothing in mainstream financial advice actually explains. Growth investing builds a number. Dividend investing builds a machine. And when you need income, a machine that produces it automatically is worth more than a pile of assets you have to convert. The average American who follows the conventional path, save in a 401k, hope the market cooperates, retire at 65, retires at 65. The average dividend investor who starts at 30 with consistent contributions and reinvestment is generating partial income replacement by their mid-40s and hits full expense coverage, the point where work truly becomes optional, around age 50 to 54 in realistic modeling. That's a 10 to 15-year gap. That is not a small thing. That is 120 to 180 months of Tuesday mornings that belong to you instead of your employer. That's your kid's childhood. That's the decade your health is still good. That's the part of life where freedom actually feels like freedom, not just relief. One thing that stops beginners from moving on this is the feeling that they need a lot of money to make dividend income meaningful. They don't. What they need is consistency. Even $200 a month invested in dividend-paying positions at 4% yield generates $8 a month in dividends after the first year. That sounds nothing, but you're not chasing the $8. You're building the machine. By year 3, that machine has meaningful momentum. By year 7, the dividends are reinvesting enough shares that your monthly income contribution and the dividend contribution are nearly equal forces. The asset is working as hard as you are. The starting point doesn't need to be dramatic. It needs to be consistent and structurally correct, aimed at income generation, not just accumulation. So here's the answer to the question I opened with. Why does one person retire at 47 and the other is still checking balances at 62? It isn't income. It isn't luck. It isn't even how disciplined they were. It's whether they built a number or built a machine. The person who retires early built assets that generate income independently of their time. They didn't have to save until they hit some distant, abstract number and then hope the math held for 30 years. They built a rising floor of income that gradually replaced their paycheck, expense by expense, month by month, until the paycheck became optional. And the moment the paycheck becomes optional, you are free. Not rich, necessarily. Free. That is the structural secret. That is why dividend investors retire earlier. Not because dividends are magic, but because income-producing assets change the target. And the new target is reachable decades before the old one. Sarah, at 51, stops reinvesting. Her portfolio is generating just over $14,000 a year in dividend income. She doesn't quit her job immediately, but she moves to 4 days a week. She takes the summer off. She coaches her daughter's soccer team on Thursdays. She is not a millionaire. She is free. Marcus, at 51, is running the spreadsheet again. He thinks he needs another 4 or 5 years. He's probably right. He'll get there. The conventional path works. It just works on a much longer timeline, with much higher dependence on market timing. He will be fine, but he won't have those Thursdays back. The answer is structure, not amount. A dollar saved and held is a bet on your discipline to sell at the right time. A dollar saved and put to work generating income is a machine with compounding cycles. The machine doesn't care about your timing. It just runs. And over 20 years, a machine beats discipline every single time. Because discipline requires constant effort and machines work while you sleep. Now, here's what most people do after they understand the income machine. They start asking a different question. Not, how much do I need to retire? But, what is it actually like inside the mind of someone who's already done this? Because the math is one thing. The psychology, the beliefs, the habits, the identity shift, that's what actually determines whether someone follows through for 15 years or gives up in year 2. That is exactly what the next video covers. It's called The Psychology of Dividend Investors Who Escape the Rat Race. And it goes deep into the mental frameworks that separate people who actually achieve this from people who understand it but never act. Watch it here. Because understanding the machine is step 1. Becoming the person who builds it is step 2. This video is one episode in an ongoing system I'm building out. The complete picture of how you move from paycheck dependent to income independent, step by step. Every few days I add another piece. Subscribe and follow it from here so when the next piece drops, you're already in position to act on it. One question before you go, and I want real answers in the comments. Right now, today, if your paycheck stopped tomorrow, how many months could you last on assets you already own? Not savings, not credit. Assets that generate income. Drop your honest number below. No judgment. That number is your starting line, and knowing it clearly is the first step to changing it.